Hello, everyone. My name is Martina, and I would like to welcome you to the exhibition tour of Devolution. We here at Devolution see the game design process as gardening. The developer is the gardener who carefully grows and nurtures their games, one iteration at a time. Our goal is to get a deeper comprehension of this process and dissect the different design decisions made by the developer. We are now at the 6th edition of Devolution. Past Devolutions have looked at many games, ranging from APOW to Thumpa to Superhot. Today, we are going to look at the mind-bending puzzle Baba Is You, with its developer, Arvi Teikari, also known as Hampuli, who is joining us from Finland. Arvi will lead us through his development process, offering us a special view on the game. We will first see an interview hosted by Mascha Camino, game developer at Machine Mensch in Berlin. And after that, we will see a Q&A session hosted by me. And you have the possibility to ask Arvi everything you want to know about this amazing, no pun intended, game. We can do that through the Q&A and the Devolution Discord channels. Both are fine. We have taken Baba Is You and its development versions. We played and analyzed them all and tried to find the pivotal moments in its growing process. After the research, we then created a timeline to display our findings to you. Usually, we'd show this you as an exhibition, but with this year's transition to an online AMAs, we present to you instead the interactive online mirror boards of Devolution. If you go to our website, 6.devolution.online, you find there the link to this mirror board. On the mirror board itself, you can check out our findings, add your thoughts as comments, and even play all the different versions of the game. Again, you can find all the information at 6.devolution.online. Oh, and tomorrow we will have the same awesome experience with Terry Covenant and his Dice Dungeon, so stay tuned. And now, shoot your confetti bombs for Mascha and Arvi, and see you later. Enjoy!
Okay. So, hi Arvi, so good to see you. So, since we haven't ever met before, I quickly introduce myself. So, my name is Mascha. I am a game designer at the Berlin-based indie studio Machine Mensch, and I have the honor today to be part of the Devolution team and to make this little interview with you. And I would like to give over the introduction role to you so you can introduce yourself.
All right. Thank you very much for the introduction role. Hello, I'm Arvi Teikari. I'm a Finnish indie game developer based in Helsinki, Finland, and I've made games for almost a couple of decades. I have this little dog with me right now. I'm looking after the dog, and it's being very cute. That's not related to my games, but I made the game Baba Is You in 2019, and I'm a huge fan of jam games, and Baba Is You was also a jam game originally, which is cool in my opinion. So.
Yeah, that's really cool. And Baba Is You is exactly the topic that we're here today, because you gave us the permission to take all of Baba Is You and to dissect it in its depth and look at the first versions until the last versions and to see what changed and what your development process was during our devolution thing. So I think first of all, look at the first versions until the last versions and to see what changed and what your development process was during our devolution thing. So I think first of all, we could talk a little bit about how Baba Is You came to life in the beginning, because I heard from other interviews that you really like game jams and you participated in many of them before the Nordic Game Jam in 2019, where Baba was developed. So maybe you can give us a little bit input why you like game jams so much and what keeps you coming back to them and what kind of games you make during the game jams.
Yeah, sure. When I started making games in 2002, I think, in primary school, game development was definitely like a nerd thing. Like it's something that nerds do, and if you are a nerd, then you are not cool, because those two words don't mix. And as a result, I internalized quite a strong kind of like a self-deprecating approach or opinion towards my own hobby, even though I super enjoyed it. Like it quickly became my favorite thing to do when I got home from school. And as a result of that, there were some schoolmates in primary school that were interested in making games, but none of them were really quite as into it as I was, and most of them kind of lost interest over time. Whereas I just that was what I wanted to do, so I kept doing it. And as a result of that, once I started getting into online communities of people making games, uh, I kind of, well, obviously, it felt like a really cool idea to be able to meet those people at some point.
Yeah.
Maybe not all of them, but some of them at least. And it was maybe in 2007 or 2008 when I heard about a game jam called No More Sweden, held in
No
Sweden.
more Sweden.
Yeah,
Okay.
it sounds pretty brutal, but
But also
from what I can
badass.
remember, the joke behind the name is that when some of the people participating, some Swedish game developers participating in that game jam were in a train together, going to the game jam, they started joking that if this train crashes or blows up, that'll be all the Swedish game developers dead at the same time because the circles were so small, and then there would be no more Sweden in the game
I
development
see.
world. Yeah, so it was a
But the train didn't
pretty
crash, hopefully.
yeah, they didn't crash, and they managed to hold a game jam, which was really nice because back then when I first heard about it, a couple of my big heroes in indie game developer, for example, Niklas Nygren, Niflas,
Hmm.
who has been working on the game Ynglet and the Knut series and the uh, Affordable Space Adventures, for example, many very cool games. There were one I was really looking forward to meeting, and also Petri Purho, who is actually Finnish, but uh, I felt that a game jam would be a very nice place to meet one of your heroes.
No, but that sounds really interesting. So the Nordic Game Jam was it the first Nordic Game Jam you've been to, or was it like already second time or third time even that you went?
Yeah,
Where you develop up as you?
I started going to Nordic Game Jams in 2011 or 2012, so it was
Ah, okay.
probably my fifth or sixth. I skipped 1 year, but yeah, I was very familiar with the concept at that point. And actually,
Hmm.
when I went to Nordic Game Jam, I didn't think I was going to even work on a jam game. I had a couple of projects of my own, and I had planned to work on those. And it was
Hmm.
only like sheer luck that I got the Baba Is You idea,
Yeah.
that I started to actually work on something related to the game jam because game jams have a really nice social atmosphere. And I have a lot of friends in Copenhagen where Nordic Game Jam is
Hmm.
held. So I was kind of planning to maybe more take the social experience without the game jam instead of doing the whole game jam thing. But well,
Yeah.
different things
But
ended up
well,
happening.
Baba, as you happened. Maybe we
Yeah.
can directly jump into the first Game Jam version and
Hmm.
have a look at it because I feel like it shows a lot already. So when we click on this, um, yeah, so the first Baba is You version, when we looked at it during the dissection, we were like, this is so great already. There's so much in it. You have tons of mechanics in there already. It's working super smoothly, and it also is like kind of polished, right? So what I was wondering was most of all, did you have this idea before you came to the game jam already, and was it already somewhere in your head, and you felt like, oh, this is now a good time to check it out and see if it works, or did you really come up with the idea for Baba on the game jam day and during the brainstorming?
Yeah, usually I try to have a game jam idea beforehand because I enjoy in game jams. I usually enjoy the kind of uh, biting a bit more than I can chew, like having an idea
Mm-hmm.
and trying to finish as much of it as possible in the meantime, so that I don't have to spend time brainstorming. But with
Yeah,
Baba Is You, it because I went to the game jam with the idea that I wouldn't be making a game for the game jam. I
sure.
didn't
Yeah.
have an idea for the game jam either. So Baba Is You's idea came to me very suddenly as a result of me hearing the theme of the
The
game
theme.
jam. The theme that time, Nordic Game Jam doesn't require people to follow the theme very closely, but the theme was not there.
Yeah.
And the not there theme made me kind of think of how in logic you can have something, let's say X
Mm-hmm.
or happy, and you can reverse the meaning of that by saying not X or not happy. And that's
Mm-hmm.
this very vague logic idea did something in my head. I can't remember anymore. It's been 3 years.
Yeah.
I had been playing some other like block pushing games that Baba is used as well. For example, Stephen's Sausage Roll and
Yeah, I
a
wanted
good
to ask if you played that. Yeah.
yeah, and Snakebird and a good snowman is hard to build most recently or more recently. And those ideas kind of gave me the idea to make a block pushing game, and this not something idea kind of I don't know what the process was exactly, but I remember vaguely that the first mental image I had in my head was of a game where there would be a pool of lava. The lava is hot. There would be some blocks of ice. The ice is cold. And when the ice comes close to the lava, the ice melts and disappears. But if you say ice is not melt, then the ice doesn't melt when it comes in close contact with the lava. The idea changed a little bit even during the game jam, but that basic concept was kind of what I started with. And I have to admit that I didn't find the idea very interesting. I thought it would be either really boring or clunky or very hard to implement, or that it would lead to very boring puzzles. Because previously, when I've tried to make puzzle games, I've often had certain problems with coming up with good puzzle ideas. So I was kind of expecting that this will be another case like that, where the idea feels more interesting than it actually ends up being. But well, I'm happy to have been wrong there. But that was my initial feeling.
And maybe let's go to the next version already, because I think it's crazy when we compare the two versions, so the Game Jam version and the version we see now, that many things changed already. For example, like Baba looks a little different with his 4 sides and everything, but also many things like sticked with you. So how was it after you won the Game Jam title, let's call it like this, and how did you decide, okay, I want to continue working on it? Because you obviously did, and it was not only a project where you said, I wanted to try something out and I saw it works, and now I put it aside, as you said earlier, but you continued to work on it and to make it even bigger and everything.
So. Yeah, it was actually somewhat not that complicated like a progress, but it had some twists and turns because as I mentioned, I was kind of unconfident about the idea initially after the game jam or during the game jam, and even after it, even after winning the game jam technically, I felt that sometimes when you make a game for a game jam, the game can work really well in the context of the game jam, but then when you try to expand it into a full game, it doesn't really work. The idea is too specific, too kind of a one-trick pony, too gimmicky or something. And when you try to expand the idea, it just fails. And with Baba Is You, a big problem I felt that I would face was that I wasn't sure. Well, as mentioned, I wasn't sure if the idea would lead to good puzzles. And after the game jam, I was unsure what I should do with the game. I felt that I would have, if I wanted to continue on the project, I would have to make the choice. Do I want to try to make a puzzle game with possibly very difficult puzzles, because I enjoy fairly difficult puzzle games, or do I want to make a toy, more like a playground thing where you see kind of cool interactions but don't really solve anything, more like appreciate the interactions? Because I felt that the game would support either, but I felt that they would they would interest so different people that it wouldn't make sense to have both. It would make more sense to have one of those. And I asked for feedback from my friends and my game developer friends and game developers that were not really my friends because I didn't know them, but that were cool people, gave me ideas and suggestions. For example, some game developers that I knew and some that I didn't know told me or asked me if I had like a spiritual idea or philosophical idea behind the game. For example, they felt that in the game, when you say Baba is you, and then you say that rock is you change what you is. They felt that I might have had some kind of like a reincarnation or Buddhistic idea behind it, where the kind of consciousness moves. They felt that I might have thought about the nature of consciousness when making the game. I didn't. I just wanted to make a puzzle game.
You didn't.
Yeah,
Okay.
I absolutely. I'm very bad at storytelling in games or otherwise, or maybe not otherwise. I'm pretty good maybe at telling stories sometimes. I don't know, but especially with games, I'm not a very confident storyteller. I would never have tried to make a game that tried to tackle a very serious topic without making jokes about it.
Okay.
But that still gave me ideas. That gave me encouragement. I felt that, oh, that's cool. Those people found
Yeah.
something I didn't really consider at all in the game. And all that encouragement made me, first of all, decide that, okay, maybe I'll actually try to make a full game out of this. And then it made me consider what I want to do with the game. And ultimately, because I personally enjoy puzzle games, I thought that maybe I'll try to make the thing that I enjoy making instead of trying to make a sandboxy thing that might interest other people, but is not what I'm interested in, maybe. And that's kind of
I think
what
that's an
settled
especially
things.
good approach for your game, because you also have to test it so many times, and so if it would be something that also challenges you maybe from time to time, that's very cool. And I find it really interesting that you said, okay, I didn't think about that philosophical philosophical approach in the game, but in the end you actually developed your own language with Baba is you. So it's like Baba is you, Baba is Wall is move, for example. And like, did you ever notice that you kind of developed your own language? And how did that feel if you did, or did you never notice? Because you did write your own language. In English even, and you said you did not speak English very good at the beginning, and now you developed your own English language, basically. It's pretty cool.
I think it's kind of like at least for a Finnish game developer, as a kid, you find English to be the cool language. So doing things in English is like, oh, now I'm doing the serious stuff. So that's also already an encouragement to do things in English if possible. I think when I started working on the game, and after the game jam, I was actually momentarily afraid, because some people told me that, hey, this is a very obviously like a programmer game. I can tell that you're a programmer because you made a programming game. And I was afraid of people titling the game a programming game and then treating it purely as a programming game, because for me, programming games are maybe something like Zachtronics games, which are very cool, but often very centered around optimization, which I don't personally enjoy all that much as a game mechanic. I enjoy solving unique puzzles and then moving on, instead of like solving a puzzle and then trying to improve my answer that already works on some level. So I guess I felt that, okay, I had done, like many people pointed it out to me as well, so I couldn't not have noticed that I had made a programming language on some level. And as I worked on the game, I kind of started to notice that, okay, this is starting to resemble more and more a programming language. But I tried to keep my thoughts kind of away from that, because it was maybe not what I felt was most interesting about the game. I was definitely more concentrating on the kind of puzzle logic potential rather than the kind of a language logic potential. Now that the game has been out for over a year, a lot of people have told me that, for example, their kids have enjoyed the game, or that they have used the game to teach lessons in a university about programming or logic, and that has been super cool. Like, I appreciate it when it's like a learning context, but I'm happy that people didn't kind of put the game in the box of programming game, only programmers will enjoy this, because that would have felt a bit too limiting. I'm happy that people find that aspect in the game and can appreciate it, but I'm happy that people also find other aspects in it.
It's first of all a very challenging logic game, so you don't necessarily have to be a programmer to enjoy this kind of things. So let's go into the next version, which would be Backup 11, I think, is a good idea. Because, as you said, with the levels, the level increase is just insane. It's like, okay, we have like 5 levels or 10, and then it's like, pew! You added so many more levels, and we are very interested in how did you build your levels. So after finding the core mechanics and the logic behind it, did you like base your levels around that, or did you have ideas for levels and you with the goal in mind? So this level should teach you something, or this level should like bamboozle you, or how did you make your levels?
Yeah, so during the game jam, when I was making the very first levels, I was definitely more just learning the system myself, kind of exploring in my head
Mm-hmm.
what kind of stuff can this thing even do? What kind of puzzles can this make, if at all? Because I was still kind of convinced that I would run into some kind of puzzle design problems.
Yeah.
And after the game jam, I mm, I started kind of brainstorming ideas for new words, new systems, tried to figure out any kind of cool interactions.
Mm-hmm.
My puzzle design process was in many ways based on trying to think of some like kind of like something that I feel would be cool to see in the game, and trying to build a puzzle around every single one of those cool things. Usually, this happened by me considering either new words to add or words I already have, and putting those together in my head. I somehow found it very hard to make plans on paper for Baba Is You, maybe because of the
Yeah.
words and all the text. But I usually in my head kind of put words together, or put a single word together with itself, or just considering the like block pushing logic and how it interacts with words, and trying to think like, is there something unobvious but cool and logically consistent that these words could do together or on their own? And
Yeah.
if I found an idea that felt that it would fulfill that goal, I tried to make a puzzle that requires using it. Also, obviously, I try to make a puzzle that teach the base mechanics. That is a
Mm-hmm.
very kind of a slow process of figuring out what are the things that players find confusing. What does the
Yeah.
game need to teach?
Yeah.
But even from the get-go, like the first level of the game stayed basically the same from the
Yeah.
first version
From the
to the
game
final
jam to
version.
the yeah.
Yeah, because it was a very simple level you can finish immediately, but that also lets you experiment with the idea. So it was a
Mm-hmm.
very, very obvious first level.
Yeah.
But so yeah, so the first maybe a month or 2 weeks after the game jam was a time when I was just kind of throwing stuff at the wall, coming
Mm-hmm.
up with the obvious ideas I had. For example, the pull mechanic, like when you have the game had push already in the game jam version, so
Yeah.
pull was a very obvious continuation. Or the shift mechanic that makes things work like conveyor belts. That was a very obvious thing
Mm-hmm.
because many puzzles have conveyor belts. I try to kind of think of those, what kind of puzzle things I can easily mimic with these words, and implementing those. And I also had some inspiration from other games. For example, the game The Witness had this
Ha ha ha
concept
ha.
where you have a puzzle, and then you get the same puzzle but with a very small tweak that makes your previous solution not work, and then you have to figure out a
Yeah.
new solution. And I really like that concept, the concept of variance. And
Mm-hmm.
in these first versions after the game jam, you can see me kind of trying and failing to implement that. I try to have these variant levels.
Mm-hmm.
There's, for example, this set of 5 levels called House A, House B, House C, and
Yeah.
House D, and House E that tries to do the thing where I have a very simple level, a very easy level, and then House B is the same level with a small tweak that is supposed to require you to really realize a new solution. It didn't
Mm-hmm.
work because I tried to kind of force something like that, even though in truth you kind of need to have someone play the level. You have to see how the players approach the levels before you can really say that, okay,
Yeah.
this is how the players approach this level, so I have to disallow this solution to make it more interesting. But I tried to force that because I felt it would be cool, and it didn't work out. Like the first maybe 80 levels happened really quickly, and they were mostly garbage levels. I was still figuring out what kind of puzzles to make. I was still very open with the puzzle ideas. I was still trying out some things that just didn't work at all. But well, I could only learn by trying it out. The first maybe 10 levels that were already in the game jam, most of those made it into the final version of the game. But out of those first 80 levels that I made after the game jam, many were scrapped or at least changed very drastically.
Yeah, but you allowed right from the beginning to solve the puzzles in different ways. So when we were playtesting, for example, we solved the puzzles differently. So sometimes Baba was wall and then we won, or some other person said like, no, I was just moving the wall, or I was moving the flag, or Baba was a flag, or something like that. And that's very interesting. So was that on purpose? So even in the game jam version, did you notice that there are many different ways how to solve the puzzle? Or many is maybe a little bit too much, but like that there are different ways, and you deliberately allowed it? Or did you sometimes artificially put that in a level afterwards and added a different solving option of the puzzle?
So that is kind of when I was trying to come up with this decision of if I want to make a puzzle game or a sandbox game, I feel that the kind of alternative solution, the like freedom of approach thing, was more kind of the sandboxy part of the equation. Because if I wanted to make a sandboxy game with no serious puzzles, but more like just playing around with words, I would make levels that maybe have some kind of a goal, something you need to do, but you can approach it in many ways, and the puzzle is not very difficult because the point is the freedom of approach instead of the difficulty. So when I kind of started working on the levels, I realized that one of Baba's strengths is this freedom of approach, but I also realized at some point that if I want to make a puzzle game, I need to limit that freedom to some extent, because if I want to make a sandboxy game, it's not a problem if the player can solve every single level in the same way. If there's always wall is stop in some corner and you can say wall is Baba and solve the level. That's not a problem because that's not the point of the game. But if I make a puzzle game, it's boring if you can solve every single level in the same way. So I felt, I don't remember at all when I kind of came into this realization. Maybe it was something I discussed with other people or suggested by other people. I don't know. But eventually I kind of realized that in the early levels that are still teaching things, as long as a level teaches the thing it's meant to teach, it doesn't matter what the approach is that the player comes up with. Because early on in the game, all those alternative solutions, even if it's just saying wall is Baba, it's still a new thing. It's still an interesting thing. And it might still teach the correct lesson for the player. So I felt that I could allow those alternative solutions and they would play to Baba's strengths, because they would show that the game is playful, that the game is kind of fun to experiment with. And when the player gets to the more difficult puzzles, I need to start restricting those alternative solutions, because they start becoming more samey. They start becoming solutions that don't showcase the cool thing in the level. They start becoming something that showcases the same thing every single time. But even after realizing that and making the more difficult levels be more restrictive, I try to generally, when I kind of had a puzzle and a tester reported that, well, you can just say wall is Baba and solve the level in a trivial way, I usually try to avoid adding a very obvious restriction. For example, later on in the development, I added a word not, so you can say wall is not Baba and directly prohibit that specific approach. I felt that it's more boring if the game explicitly tells you that you cannot do this. I'd rather have a situation where you can say wall is Baba, but it doesn't work because of something else, some like unobvious detail of the level, rather than saying that wall is not Baba and explicitly prohibiting that approach. So I wanted to kind of preserve the feeling of experimentation, even if I'm still restricting the player to a single or just a couple of different solutions.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Okay, and let's look again quickly at the version. I click on this thing to be big, because one thing that also jumped out on us is, first of all, Baba looks like Baba already, and it's only backup 11. And the other thing is that there are so many things in the game already that are like super juicy, let's call it. But it's we weren't sure. Did you add like the juiciness deliberately to add juiciness, or was it happening on the way and you were like, oh, I add some animations here and I add some particle effects there. Also, the words wobble now because I like it better, or was it really like a thing you did went through and be like, okay, today I'm going to add juice and I'm going to do this and this and this, or how did this workflow go for you? Because it really jumps out that it's so pretty already.
Yeah, so when I started working on the full game, when I had decided that I'm going to make a full game, I had a brief moment where I was trying a couple of different approaches to the visual style, and I was also slightly concerned if I should do a 3D game instead. I was
Okay.
Because Multimedia Fusion cannot do 3D at all, and is best suited for pixelated games. It can't do like a HD approach super well. It can do that, but it's intended originally for pixelated games. Or okay,
Yeah.
that's maybe unfair, but it's best suited for that. And I knew that if I wanted to make the game on my own, it would be easiest if I picked a solution for the art and the audio that I can do myself, which would mean that I can do it in Multimedia Fusion's own tools, which would mean that it would either have to be kind of limited HD or it would have to be pixelated. And I felt that when I noticed that Baba Is You, as the idea has potential, I started thinking that maybe if I make it 3D, if I make it really nice looking, if I make it really kind of easy to sell and make the audio really high quality, maybe that increases the potential of the game to be a hit. Maybe I should do that as like from a marketing perspective. But then I realized that if I do that, I would have to learn a new tool or pay someone else to do the things for myself. Sorry again. And well, that would go kind of against what I mentioned earlier of wanting to do things on my own, wanting to have the kind of all the strings in my hand, wanting to have the responsibility to myself. And I debated it for a surprisingly short time. I thought it was like a month before I settled on something, but apparently it was only about 2 weeks after I settled on a solution. And ultimately, I decided, especially when I realized that the idea is very strong, I started feeling that, okay, maybe the idea is strong enough that even if the art style is maybe not the most sexy one, even if the audio is kind of minimalistic, even if I do those things on my own methods, maybe the idea is so good that doesn't matter, or it matters less. So I started considering like, what can I do with this that I can do it with my own style, but so that I still try to keep it as kind of a stylistically cool as possible.
Maybe let's go back to the level editor in the next version, which would be backup 36. So many things changed already. For example, the map looks completely different now. You have an actual map, which is more like an environment instead of like only this grid thing. And even from version 29 to this version 36, it changed art-wise again. And I find it very interesting that you, for example, added this flower meta progression mechanic, because when I was first playing it, I was like, what's flowers? What does it do? What's happening? So how did you go in the development of adding these meta things? Like, did you feel like something is missing and I want to restrict players from seeing all the levels at once, or like why flowers, for example? How was your process there? Because it feels like most of the logic is already there, but you could keep going on developing the game itself, and then this is one of the things that you added rather late, for example.
Yeah, I think in the first post game jam version, there might be a way, or maybe it actually fell between versions that you took a look at, but I realized, like from the get-go, I realized that I want to have something that the player collects, just because, well, it's nice to have something that tells you kind of that you're progressing in the game. Like it's nice to have, it's nice to be able, first of all, to have levels that don't unlock always new levels. And if there are levels that don't unlock new levels, it's nice to have some kind of a prize, some reason to complete the level. And also, once I realized that I'm going to do these sub maps, I felt that I would, first of all, I would like to make it so that the player doesn't have to beat every single level in every single sub map, because it would feel a bit too restricting. I wanted to give the player as many levels to approach as possible, because it's more forgiving for the player. And also because I started realizing that many of the puzzles of the game are going to be very difficult. And I felt that the game can be a lot of fun also for players who are not interested in very difficult puzzles, more for people who want to see the kind of funny word action. And a game developer friend of mine, Alan Hazelden, who made games such as Cosmic Express and A Good Snowman is How to Build, I'm pretty sure that Alan suggested having a thing where you can access the final level of the game very early, and you, as a result of that, you can kind of get to the ending very early. So if you are not interested in the like extreme challenge of the final levels of the game, you can always just say that, okay, I'm not finding this fun anymore. I'll go beat the final level. I'm done with the game. And that's fine. You can feel the accomplishment of beating the game. You don't have to kind of give up at some point. And I really like that suggestion. So this idea of not requiring beating every single level in every sub area, but also not requiring beating every single level at all to beat the game, led to this idea of having two different collectibles. And the thing I was going to mention at first, there's one version where I was trying out, like, what would it be that we are collecting? And the first idea was triangles. For some reason, I guess I had a more.
Yeah, there is a version where we have those triangles. In the corner.
So my first idea was maybe that the game would be more abstract, because the idea is pretty abstract, and the game map in those first versions, as you saw, was very abstract. It was more a collection of levels rather than a level map as you are seeing right now. So I thought that the things you are collecting might be triangles, and then they form stars or squares or something, and that those would be the collectibles. But then as I went forward, I spent a lot of time kind of trying to figure out what this meta, like I felt that the game would also need to have some kind of a secret thing on top of these collectibles that are not secret. They are like very explicit. I felt that it would be cooler. I like it when games have some kind of a secret element. So I spent, I think, maybe a year or a year and a half thinking about like what kind of a secret element would the game have. And from a very early stage, I got some suggestions from game developer friends, and also I agreed with them. For example, Stephen Lavelle, who made Stephen Sausage Roll, suggested that maybe having some kind of a secret sub-map, like secret map you can get into. And I like that idea a lot, like a minus world, as those are sometimes called because of Super Mario Bros. I felt that I maybe wanted to have something like that, like something you do opens up a secret map, and that is like you get to a secret ending by doing that. I tried many ideas, maybe like saying game is win, or saying you is you leads to some kind of secret ending, also because of inspiration from The Witness, which, spoiler alert, has a secret ending. And I had a lot of trouble with this because I felt at first that the game would be very abstract. I felt the game map would be very abstract, and it would be very hard to figure out what kind of an idea would work really well with that kind of an abstract map. And finally, when I thought of the word level, which started off as being something that just applies a rule to the level. You can say level is win, and then you just win the level. Or you can say level is defeat, and then everything in the level becomes dangerous. It was a very simple, very logical idea. Spoilers upcoming. When I realized that when you say level is Baba, my initial thought was that, okay, when you say level is Baba, you just get a huge Baba in the middle of the level and you basically just fail the level. The level turns into a Baba and you can't do anything else. When I worked on that idea further, I realized that, wait a second, what if when you say level is Baba, you actually become a Baba in the world map and you can move that Baba around? And that led organically to the idea that maybe what if the world map is a level just like everything else? Maybe the world map is not like a level selector. Maybe if it's a level in itself. And that led through like several hoops, which led to the kind of a simple world map you saw in the previous version, where the level or the map is made out of the same objects, these like square-shaped things, which I felt didn't look very good, and ultimately led to this world map you are seeing right now, where the map is actually hand-drawn, because I felt I wanted to go away from the abstract approach. I wanted to make the game more organic in its look. And all these ideas, all these meta approaches eventually just culminated in this world map, which you're actually seeing right now, which is kind of like a more organic or more concrete, more real life world map, where you have levels that actually has rules in itself. In the corner that is actually in secret is a level in itself. So it took me a long time to figure out what to do, but in the end I feel that I kind of managed to figure out something pretty cool that improved the game in many ways, because at this point I would be so sad if the game was a very abstract puzzle game where you just go from level to level and the level selector is just like level selector. You go from level A to level B. But instead you have this level map, and Baba kind of in some way exists in this world. And when you change the rules, it actually changes the world instead of changing some programmer thing in the game. I'm really happy that I made this change, and it helped me with this meta aspect as well. So my explanation was very organic as well and kind of all over the place, but I hope I got the idea across. Sorry about the spoilers.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm a little bit sad now that I couldn't find out myself, but also happy because I maybe never would have found out myself. So that's fine. Also, so much for storytelling in games is not much your thing, because I feel like it really is. So I think this is a nice final anecdote, and Arvi, thank you so much for giving us all the versions and all the insight of the development process and the time that we had to look into and dive into also your game design decisions and everything. And for this interview, it was really, really nice to hear from you personally what your thoughts were on the development process. And so me and the team, we would love to thank you again. It was a real pleasure, and we see you then again in the Devolution Q&A Amaze panel thingy. And so thanks a lot, and thanks to Baba, and yes.
Thank you very much for having me, and thanks for considering Baba for this whole thing, and thanks for organizing all of this, obviously. So it was a lot of fun to talk about this. Sorry for me being so talkative, but it was a lot of fun to
No, it's awesome.
Things.
That was really great. We don't get that too often, so that was really awesome.
Hello, everyone, again. So we are now here with Arvi from Finland. We are so glad to have you, Arvi. Thanks for coming. And I already have some questions for you. Are you ready for that? Oh, sorry. Before we start, I would like to mention that we are sorry for the technical problems with the streaming, for the freezing. We are going to post the complete video on our website if you want to see it without problems. So that's it. Back to us.
I was still watching the stream, so that's why I had this. expressing for a moment. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So.
Are you ready for the questions from the audience?
Yeah, I'm totally ready. Bring it on.
Okay, let's start. I first have a question that really resonates to the devolution concept, the parallelism with the gardening. And this is the question. I'm going to read it to you. With devolution, we are trying to examine the game development process as a growing thing, as game development in an organic process, as a mixture of planned and not planned steps. Do you think this view on the Baba Is You development makes sense?
Yeah, I feel that at least with Baba Is You, I can really understand the viewpoint of seeing game development as like a growing a plant or such, because Baba Is You's development had a lot of kind of figuring things as I went and things growing organically. For example, I initially planned to have the development last 1 year. I was going to release it in spring 2019, and I mentioned it in the interview. So the extra year gave me a lot of time to add things, and those led to other things. This whole level leads to meta things, leads to secrets, leads to another ending, and so on. Like all that was very much built on previous knowledge. And I guess you could say that maybe the games I played previously before starting Baba Is You that gave me the idea for Baba Is You were kind of the seeds or the fertilizer for the Baba Is You seed or something like that. So yeah, I can definitely see parallels between gardening and making a game, at least in some game projects. I could see some game projects being much more kind of a systematic in their approach, and thus being more like maintaining a bonsai a plantation or like growing a hedgerow or something. But yeah, there's definitely parallels.
Yeah, and talking about the amount of time you put in this game, I would like to ask you a question about level design, which is the following. You made an amazing amount of levels for the game. How many levels did you make, and how many did ended in the game, actually?
That is a very good question. I think the game's files kind of tell a certain story. If you go look at the level names or the level files, they are all numbered, and I did reuse some numbers. So if I deleted a level, I created a new level in its place. But I think the final level count, according to the game's files, is something like 300 and something. I don't remember exactly, but I would say that there were fairly few levels that didn't make it in at all. But there were several levels that I had to change. Like there was a couple of levels where I had an idea that just didn't work at all, and then I decided, okay, I'll scrap this idea and try to turn this into something else. I'm actually right now going into the game files to see what was the number according to the game itself. Yeah, it would be 329. I have no idea how close to truth that is, but I guess it's the best estimate we have.
Yeah, that's impressive. Whoa. And still talking about level design, what was your biggest learning from the playtesters and the community? Were there tricks that you have learned from levels that others have built for the game?
I've actually tried to avoid looking too much into fan creations after the release, because I feel that since I was going to add the level editor and I wanted to add some more words to the game, I felt that it would be a bummer if I got a lot of ideas from fan creations and felt kind of like, okay, now I'm adding these things to the game, but they are not like my ideas, in a sense. So I've been kind of intentionally avoiding looking at fan stuff until very recently, when I decided, okay, I won't be adding any more words to the game, or all the word ideas I have at least in my head. So playtesters have been extremely important for the game, and in a way the fans of the game have been also playtesters, because the Steam version has a opt-in free for all beta version, which has, for example, the latest version of the level editor and such. And for the past past over a year, I've gotten a lot of feedback from players who try to do some really complicated levels and then notice that the game doesn't really support that, or wish for some feature from the level editor and notice that the level editor doesn't have that, and come to tell me that, hey, could you please add this? So and before release, obviously, I can't really overstate how important the testing group was, because they were really enthusiastic about trying different things. I can't maybe think of a single big lesson I would have learned from testers as a part of the testing, but there were some words that were suggested by testers, and I think at least 2 levels that were directly made or inspired heavily by tester suggestions. For example, several of the variant levels where you have a simple version and then with a small change, the level becomes much more difficult. Often those were created with the testers finding a more convoluted solution that I hadn't considered, which I then made into the variant level, and then I prevented the variant solution from the original level, and thus I had like 2 levels of different difficulty that players could play. So that in that sense, the testers had a very big impact in the final product.
Yeah, cool. We are getting a lot of comments about Baba Is You and your interview in the YouTube channel. I would like to read them to you very briefly. So Daniel Green says, that's interesting, but the game's attachment to logic makes it more profound. I always love when whatever you is, then the sound cuts off and you cease to exist. It's deep. And then I would like to ask you a question from Ellie, which is a thing that I think that a lot of people are wondering. Can't wait for the level editor to be officially released. Will there be a level editor? When will the level editor be released?
That's a difficult question. I was hoping for a release this summer, but as always happens when you think that it would be nice if I had this thing done by day X, it's always day X plus 1 year. So I think we are still going to be able to release the level editor this year, but it will probably be in late autumn. We don't have a date yet. We are working also on, we're working on a mobile version, and with the level editor, we are also going to release 2 new level packs, one for kind of unused levels that were cut from the original game, and one for totally new levels. So all that takes a bunch of work. We don't have a very large team, so yeah, let's say autumn is the time when the level editor will be released. But if it's not autumn, please don't blame me. Blame I don't know. Blame Zeus.
Yeah, I think we are all waiting so hard for the level editor. And I would like to talk about the linguism of the game. Ellie made a comment about this. As a linguist, I feel like it's playing with the building blocks of language, just like we can do with phonemes and in morphology. And about the linguism, I also would like to ask you a question. You have iterated the visual language of the blocks a lot, communicating the meaning and the possibilities of the blocks better from version to version. Any learnings regarding this?
I think the basic syntax of the game came to me like once I had decided that, okay, this game is going to be called Baba Is You, and the game is built around this Baba is, or like something verb, something concept. It was pretty set in stone. I think one of the largest early changes was where I had the word, in the final game, I had the word has, which is like Baba has rock. So if Baba is destroyed, then a rock appears where Baba was. Early on, that was in, because, well, in is a very logical word to have, like Baba in box. So if you open box, then Baba comes out. And I was working with that. But I realized that if you say Baba in box and say Baba in box is you kind of, I felt that, okay, I want to make all different kinds of grammatical syntaxes to work with this in word, and eventually realized that it was actually hugely complicated to make it work in all the ways I wanted to. So I discussed it with, I think, testers, and maybe someone suggested, or maybe I got the idea myself, I don't remember anymore, to change the word to has, because when you say like Baba is rock, then Baba turns into a rock. If you say Baba has rock, then Baba creates a rock. But with in, you say Baba is rock, but you say rock in Baba. So that's
Yeah. I am very sad because we actually are out of time, and I see people are actually asking a lot of stuff, and they are really, really interesting, but we are out of time, so we need to cut here. It was really a pleasure to have you and listen to you talking about your amazing game. And yeah, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you very much for having me, and thanks for the interview as well.